propose that we will begin. I want to thank you to be with us for this first webinar in 26, and we have planned different webinar. You have seen our next webinar about radical right in Czech Republic, very interesting case. And we will have also a webinar about radical right in Poland, radical right in Romania. I finished to organize a webinar about Hungarian election. Not so easy to find Hungarian colleagues who accept to speak in public. Then I'm very, very happy with this situation. Today it's for Bulgarian team. Thank you very much. We have Ivaylo Dinev, who work in the Center for Eastern European International Studies in Berlin. Petia Gueorguieva, Senior Assistant Professor in New Bulgarian University, and Petia helped me to organize this webinar. Thank you very much, Petia. Ildiko Otova, Associate Professor and Head of Department of Political Science, New Bulgarian University. And last but not least, Maria Spirova, Associate Professor in Comparative Politics, Leiden University. And it is a common organization between Leiden universities and New Bulgarian University and Sevipol, and I'm sure Berlin, but too slow to give us. But I consider that without logo, but Berlin is with us, no doubt. But in some country, the administrative procedure are more slow. Okay, then we will begin our webinar. As you know, we begin with a roundtable, with a discussion. I have some questions, or guests will discuss together, and after this, audience have time to discuss for the questions, etc. Then it seems to me very important to begin. Petia, can you remind us how Bulgaria ended up in this situation? What were the main stage? Because I think nobody can remember exactly the different stage, and how can you arrive? Please don't speak about all the election. We have no time, but can you focus about the main moment to explain how we arrive about with this situation? Petia, thank you very much. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Jean-Michel, for organizing this webinar, and thank you to our colleagues and participants. I see here several Bulgarian specialists and also people familiar with Bulgarian politics, but yet I will try to introduce very briefly this unprecedented situation, one for the Bulgarian very young democratic tradition, and secondly, it is an unprecedented situation with such instability and frequent elections for the European countries. May I ask Jacopo to share the first slide? I have only 3 slides just to be very clear. The next one, please. Here, just to remind to everyone the different elections, and to explain that these 7 parliamentary elections organized since April 21 to nowadays, in fact, there are the first one in April, which were regular one, and then we have had 6 other which were snap elections. The situation of destabilization is related to the mass civic protests, the protest cycle from 2020, 2021, which gave rise to new political challengers, new political parties, the protest one, anti-corruption. But at the same time, these new political actors were very unwilling to compromise or to be more moderate in order to find a way to form majority in parliaments and to elect stable government. That is why each new snap election in 2021 is due to the lack of majority. The very important event in 2021 in July was the arrival as a first political force of the party of Slavi Trifonov, the research people. For the first time since 2009, GERB was not the first political force of the country. Then in November 2021, a new protest pro-European platform called We Continue the Change arrived first in parliament. So we are now waiting the exact date of the 8th elections, which will be held in April 2026. What is important here to precise is that twice there were regular government, but this government in fact has to resignate either because of the successful vote of no confidence or because of disagreement between partners in parliamentary majority. And the new in this situation now, since 11 of December 2025, is that the government of Rosenjelescu, which is a minority coalition government, but with stable majority in parliament, in fact, this resignation was not due neither because of the successful vote of no confidence or because of disagreement between partners in the coalition, but because of the pressure of the citizens, the new mass civic protests against the corruption, the state, the capture of the state, and all these politicians are unwilling to represent citizens, to hear the grievance of citizens. May we look at the second slide, please? Yeah. The picture is much more diverse when it comes about the governments, because here you can see at least 9 different cabinets. The majority of these cabinets are the so-called caretaker cabinets appointed by the president. In blue, the caretaker cabinets appointed by the president are these caretaker cabinets where the president, Roman Radev, has the full power to choose the prime minister and then to appoint and to approve the cabinet. And from 2021 to 2024, these caretaker cabinets, in fact, were in power without functioning parliament, without any democratic control over the decisions or actions of the caretaker governments. In 2024, an amendment of the constitution was approved and introduced, and since then you have the 7th and the 8th caretaker governments in green of Guavchev 1 and Guavchev 2. He was appointed by the president, but the parliament is still in place to control and to monitor the decision of the government. And with these amendments of the constitution, the powers of the president were somehow limited. So, and the very last slide, just to show another picture of this fluidity and radicalization and lack of stability. At each new election, a new party entered parliament. You can see the number of parties. I count as a new parties here. All these parties born from the protest, bottom-up energy, citizen protests, and with stances against corruption and state capture. And you can see also the share of seats in the current parliament now, elected in October 2024. It is very fragmented National Assembly with 9 different political groups. And you can see the number of these new parties with a part approaching 45% of all deputies were elected from new parties. But these parties cannot go together. There is no homogeneity among them because some of them are pro-European, others are less liberal, less European, some are really anti-European. So it is very difficult to compose with this fluidity and radicalization of political actors. I will stop here because I'm sure that there will be several questions to follow up if you are interested in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Petia. Useful to remember all this fact. And now I want to ask to Ivaylo, a specialist of mass demonstration and protest in Bulgaria, but not only in Bulgaria. Can you explain the large-scale demonstration that have been taking place repeatedly in Bulgaria, which recently brought down the government, but don't seem to have any partisan or electoral implication. Finally, or we can explain to have so important mass demonstration, no one thing but 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and finally we can see very democratic feelings in the street, but nothing changed. Can you try to explain us this situation or give us some ideas?
Thank you, Jean-Michel, for the organization of the webinar about this important topic. Again, talking about Bulgaria and the crisis, 5-6 years talking about the crisis in Bulgaria. And yeah, Bulgaria, this is not the only single protest wave in the last years. It's the third wave in the last 15 years that is dramatically large, massive, similar to 2020, when this political crisis was actually provoked by the rise of the previous protest wave, but also similar to 2013, 2014, when was another protest waves, again, anti-systemic, anti-governmental, anti-oligarchic, anti-mafia, and so forth. So I briefly described this protest mobilization that are connected now to why we have another round of elections. Firstly, something that maybe in the initial description in the media, in European media, was kindly wrong about trying to connect the Euro adoption in Bulgaria with the protest mobilization, what was not really right, because the protest was not at all associated with that. There were during the year anti-Euro protests organized by the nationalist parties, but this one started specifically by the adoption of the national budget, which provoke immediate reaction from different organizations, from the business association, because in the national budget proposal was idea for increasing of the taxes in Bulgaria, like basically the social security, but also much larger reason for the protest was the long-term suspicion that the national budget is used actually for clientelistic practices. So this provoked the long-term idea and the framing, and this is the master frame of Bulgarian politics, why we have civil protests, because people perceive that the political elite is actually using the national budget for their own party interest. So this was the large or the general reason for the mass mobilization and why so much people demonstrated in numbers. We can say that maybe these were one of the biggest demonstrations in Sofia specifically from the 90s, because from drone image calculations, around 100,000 people to maybe 150,000 people alone in Sofia demonstrated in one of the protest days, together with maybe around 50,000 in Plovdiv and other cities in the country. So this protest actually was not only in the capital, not only in Sofia, but in most of the regional cities and some small towns also. This is one of the interesting characteristics of this mobilization. I will say some positive and some negative features of this mobilization. So this is the positive thing. We have really, I will say, a capacity for large mobilizations. And here, the characteristic of the magnitude, numbers, and space is very massive. We have a lot of people and a lot of towns where people were mobilized. So not urban and rural divide, but really a national-wide demonstration. And also, the social base of the protest was very interesting. The media framed the protest as the Gen Z mobilization. We can actually say that Bulgarian case is one of the most successful Gen Z protests in the last 2 years, because only for 3 weeks it achieved a resignation of the government. Yes, by compounding of different factors, but the protest was the main factor. And despite 2 other protests of Gen Z, where you have repressions, police arrests, here we have only 3 weeks and resignation of the government. So really successful case. We will see for long-term success, whether it will be really a long-term success. So the protest was in a social base with a lot of young people, mainly by the role of social media. So the role of social media like TikTok, which in other cases, like the election in Romania, was more a negative image of the role of TikTok. Here, TikTok, Instagram, like short video formats, social media were very important in driving young people to go to the street. Also, another important and a new thing for the democratic culture of Bulgaria was the a very clear pronunciation of articulation of the role of ethnic minorities in the political debates. So during the demonstration, there were representatives of Roma and Turkish minorities who were speaking against practices in their communities about clientelistic vote and so on. This is for first time. I never seen, like, from the 89 demonstration, where for sure the Turkish minority was part of the regime change, starting with the demonstration against the change of their names. But only now, 36, 37 years after, we have again these large coalitions, actually, of multitude, different actors, different social groups, different income groups. Maybe here the reason was that the spark was initially economic. So increasing of the budget, increasing of the tax provoke grievances along different social groups horizontally. So this large coalition, despite that the protest was organized mainly by the Democratic Bulgaria, we continued the change coalition. They were the face and the organizers, but I will say that in the beginning, they were the main organizer, then the protest became much larger than the oppositional parties because of the numbers of people who spontaneously joined the demonstration without any political affiliations. Also, the oppositional parties from very different background, as was mentioned already by Petia, that the opposition is split on foreign policy, on liberal conservative, on many issues. But they have strategy during this protest demonstration to not divide. There were attempts of divide, but I think strategically the organizers choose the speakers to be someone, so the people who speak to speak something that can unite the diverse social groups and political flanks. And the immediate effect, resignation, immediate effect, where there are talks about what was really the reason. Boyko Borisov said that he was the reason for the resignation of the government, that he personally chose that, but it happened in the context of protest. And we know from the last 15 years that Borisov doesn't like really much to not answer to protest mobilization. He doesn't like protests against his governments. He usually use this strategy when there are some mass demonstrations to set back and to start a new strategy for the next elections. And These are the positive things, but the negative, just a bit of negative, and I will end my talk. The negative things, despite this multitude and different social groups, maybe because of the timing, because there were only 3 weeks, the role of the young people was only an image. They try to organize themselves in different initiatives, like they organize now student initiatives, but they are fragmented in different organizations, different small informal groups. So there is no one, for example, student movement, what was the case in 2013, for example, or during the 90s. So they are now trying from this fragmented civil society organization and spontaneous mobilized individuals to try to build a movement. But I'm skeptical about this because usually this is the negative part of our protest culture, which is, as I said, we have the mobilization capacity to organize immediate reaction of mass mobilizations, but we don't have sustainable social movements. The only sustainable social movements in the past were, for example, the ecological green movement, but after joining the government in 2021, 2022, they kind of declined. And despite the trade unions, there is no other, I would say, social movement they can really work in more years than the spontaneous mobilization and then declining and disappearing. So this is again the case because the mobilization in organizational terms were again mainly in logistic and everything of the repertoire of the oppositional parties. But for the democracy to work, we need a strong civil society in terms of researchers, organizations, and not only spontaneous mobilization and kind of decentralized mobilizations, leaderless mobilizations. And this fragmented civil society and fragmented social movements is something that I think this will not be, we will not find a solution in this protest wave, but at least we are going to our next election. We will have maybe a new landscape. So they were the one open question that remained is how actually civil activists can try to transform the political landscape by going into the parties and going also into the elections. So already during the protest mobilization, all oppositional parties started opening like the debate that they will have a list with civil activists for the elections in their party's list. But this was already the case in 2013, 2020, so in the previous protest waves. And usually this type of civil list in the party's list for the elections are only a symbol. There were another tendencies within the parties how to choose the list, who will be a second, third, and so forth. I'm getting skeptical about this, and so these are like we have positive and negative effects. Just last sentence with this protest wave, which is now the word about this protest, the success of the Bulgarian protest go to the States, to Europe, to Greece and Spain. For first time, we see that Bulgarian protesters are compared to in the positive way to the protest culture in other countries. And people say that, for example, in Greek, I already saw comments, or in Spain, how we can be like the Bulgarians, only for 3 weeks to provoke government resignation. So for first time after 35 years of transition, Bulgaria, so we have the word in Bulgaria from the 90s, how we can be like the United States. Now, it's going to the different direction, how the states can be like Bulgaria to have these mass mobilizations against oligarchy.
Okay, thank you very much, Ivaylo. I don't know if Petia, Maria, or Ildiko want to add something about this, some sentence, or want to discuss if you agree, some details. Petia?
Thank you. Thank you, Ivaylo, for your very good presentation of protest. I would like just to add from the point of parties and who is the main beneficiary from different protest waves. Unfortunately, we have to agree that For instance, the big cycle in 2013-2014 gave rise to National Front for Salvation of Bulgaria, Eurosceptic and really law and order party. In 2021, the most successful new political party or political entrepreneur was Slavi Trifonov. Not at the beginning of each protest, we have the energy of pro-European, liberal intellectuals, free citizens, but at the end, we have a new winner or new party entering the parliament, which is not from these values and political, let's say, ideals. And I'm afraid that now, and I was thinking about it the day when Borisov and the government of Zhelyakov decided to go away, that now the structure is open to new savior, to new challenger, but this time he comes not bottom up. He will be top down, and maybe Ildiko will continue with this analysis.
Thank you. Maria or Ildiko, do you want to add something about this subject? I'm sure that you can add a lot of things, but
I think the elephant in the room is just one, and the name is Radev, and so I'm leaving it to Ildiko.
Yeah, we will arrive to Radev. We will arrive. Ildiko?
Oh, so apparently I'm the expert on the Radev, which is definitely not a compliment, but anyways, so for those never heard his name, actually he's been, or he actually was president for almost two terms now, and he in a way emerged on the political scene like 9 years ago, seemingly out of nowhere, but this nowhere has probably a clear definition, because there are persistent doubts that this nowhere is linked to pro-Russian circles in Bulgaria or directly to Russia. So nowhere, but probably in Russia. Let's put it that way. So before becoming a president, he previously headed the Bulgarian Air Force, and as he likes to stress, he graduated from a U.S. military academy, and he's actually a NATO general. But beyond this, his political training is virtually non-existent. And during in both of his campaigns, he was backed by what we have a socialist party. I'll use this this formulation because it's definitely not a socialist party. But anyways, he's been supported by the socialist party, but he has never actually clearly defined an ideological orientation. He's kind of an empty symbol in terms of ideological orientation. So his public positions, I'll give just a few examples, range from kind of a patriotic speeches during inauguration ceremonies for example, a giant flagpole somewhere around Bulgaria, or defending the Bulgaria's nationalist Holocaust might that there is no such a thing as a Holocaust in Bulgaria. It's a long story, but you can see kind of a nationalist, nativist kind of discourse, and of course opposing sanctions on Russia, and lately calling for a post factum referendum on the Eurozone accession of Bulgaria adopting the euro. So rather than proposing a clear, coherent ideological orientation or program or whatever, he has articulated pronounced nationalist, nativist, anti-liberal, in many ways, views, and is openly supporting leaders or politicians such as Orban, sorry, but he's mainly and widely remembered by actually two things. The first one is claim that Crimea is Russian during his a second campaign running for a president, and then his appearance at the start, in the beginning of the 2020 protest wave, when he came out of the presidency, out to the square with his fist raised. And in my opinion, in my view, this is actually the moment with this gesture when he actually it's kind of a renunciation of his formal role of being a president. But anyways, actually speculations around his idea and intention to form a party or political project, as we lately call those, are circulating around in already a few years, and we have examples already mentioned by Petia and Ivaylo of political projects initiated in openly or not that openly by Radev. But anyways, few weeks ago, and this is the elephant in the room, he actually formally left the presidency to enter politics directly, or in his imagination to lead the people, casting himself as another savior from the mafia, the state captured, whatever. But as Petia already mentioned, he's not new for the political scene, because we should not forget that during the recent years of political crisis, actually Radev has ruled single-handed the state on each of the constitution, I would say, through this caretaker governments for few years already. So he's not completely new. So what do we actually know about his new project? In a nutshell, nothing and everything. Because up to this moment, he has given only one interview on the public television in a full comfort, because the public television granted him a comfortable platform, nearly an hour with only Radev and the journalist in the studio. So from this interview, we learned that he will explain about his new project, but at some later date, we don't know when, that he plans to form a party, but probably after the elections, and that he knows what Gini index is, and he knows the concept of inequality, but he insists that he'll deal with this focusing on growth and investments and innovations, and lastly that he's indifferent to labels such as left or right, and he's leaving to us to decide whether he's left or right, where to exactly put him. And actually this goes to my mind the old line that ni droite ni gauche fasciste, neither right nor left, but fascist. But I leave this to you to decide. But anyways, we still know nothing concrete about this new project, but we know for sure is that this is a classic example of a populist leader. But unfortunately for him, unfortunately for us probably, he has quite weak communication skills. He's not really good in entering into debate. He's not really good in political communication, and his charisma is rather questionable. He's not the most charismatic person on earth. So this is about Radev. I see that many colleagues try to compare Radev with what happened in 2001 with the former Tsar Simeon Saxe-Boroditsky, who served after the elections in 2001 as prime minister. But let's be honest, the situation is quite different. Firstly, because after the Saxe-Boroditsky government, we going through a process of normalization of populism. So this is not another huge wave of a new populist leader. This is just the next populist leader. So I highly doubt that he'll be his project will be a huge success. The only way for him to have this success he's dreaming of is by I would say external influence, which is not impossible, and we've seen how actually this works in Romania. And I'll stop here.
Okay, thank you very much. It's very important to have more information about Radev. I think this name will arrive in the Western newspaper in Europe, and I think nobody for the moment know exactly Radev, but it's very important. I don't know if Petia, Ivaylo, or Maya want to add something about Radev or not. Do you agree, or do you want to add something? Ivaylo, Maria, Petia? Okay, Petia?
I would like just to share with you my observation that it is, of course, a clear example of new populist leader. We are witnessing the hyper-personalization of Bulgarian politics. We have one personality. There is no party. We don't know his team. We don't know his positions. But he's presented as the most popular politician in Bulgaria. And the second striking observation is that likewise, the state, the institutions, the national television, the most important journalists are preparing in a very theatric way. We are witnessing, we are like in a theater, and the main character appears. And it is denying the multi-party system, the civil society. There are several small political parties which don't have any access to media to share their ideas. It is also a denial of this very huge and mass civic energy from December protests. And of course, the main enemy during the upcoming campaign will be We Continue the Change and Democratic Bulgaria. They are accused now in every possible scene on earth.
Thank you. Ivaylo?
Just to continue in the same way for the foreign audience, so people who are not so engaged with the Bulgarian politics, we have this tradition of challenger parties. From the after the 90s of the big divide between the communists and anti-communists, with the emergency of the former Tsar, then with Borisov, then we have some small parties like host parties, like Barekov or the National Front that were already mentioned, of nationalist parties like Sidorov, Ataka, and the last protest wave provoke additional shift with new parties that try, like these challenger parties of either charismatic or speaking on the voice of the protesters. Actually, in our party system, maybe only the Socialist Party that was actually the continuation of the former Communist Party. All other parties emerge as a protest parties. They try to speak to the voice of the discontent, and in this way we can say that all parties are actually, at least in their beginning, populist parties. So I think this is Radev, it's entering a kind of tradition. We have this tradition, I call it protest democracy, but this is the tradition of Bulgarian party system. And if it was not Radev, I mean, before 2 years, where we continue to change democratic Bulgaria, the research people of Trifonov. This is a regular story in Bulgaria. And this also neither left, neither right. This strategy was also used before by others. And here the big question will be on what Radev, Borisov, we continue to change democratic Bulgaria, we agree to run, because we don't have many options. It will be either Radev, we continue to change democratic Bulgaria, or we continue to change democratic Bulgaria with Borisov, or Radev and Borisov. So there are limited options because the party system is very divided, but also our party system in a way need coalitions. And every political party, and also this new project of Radev, all of them speak like they will have majority. But there is no party that can have majority. Neither the Radev project will have majority, I think. This is another problem in our party system, the polarization and the protest rhetoric in the parties that actually limited the space for coalition and compromise.
Okay, Maria, do you want to add something?
Well, I speak next, so I think I'll just speak, and I will also respond to some extent to what was said so far. So I agree with some of what has been said and disagree with some of it, and I already see that in the chat there's a discussion going on as well. I think we should not underestimate Radev and how much he is liked by the ordinary Bulgarians and how much support he can get. I hope to be proven wrong, but I fear that he will deliver, and I think he will deliver because, of course, it's a tradition, right? We are marking 25 years since the ex-monarch came on a white horse and saved us. Later, Borisov did something similar, Trifonov and Paevsky, of course. But I think the reason we should, well, he's popular, we should worry about him is that he's an answer to a lot of the problems or trends, or he's of Bulgarian politics over the last 15 years, let's say, or more for that matter, probably the last 25 years, maybe even the whole 36 years of Bulgarian democracy, which I've been asked to speak about, right? Basically, how did we end up here? What are the underlying problems in Bulgarian society that we end up here? And a lot of them have already been mentioned, and I see a lot of familiar names in the audience, so I know what that you know, and maybe some of you know even better than me. But I've listed them, so I'm going to go over some of them, just kind of, I think, to systematize. So the first and probably where we start, and Ivaylo mentioned that, right, is the lack of stable political allegiances. Right? Traditionally, Bulgarian society, democratic Bulgarian society, has no structured political preferences, which allows, of course, for volatility and which allows for very easy swaying one way or the other, even though we have not really had major extremes like some other countries, right? We've more or less remained in the center. The difference is who is the man, because it has been a man in all cases, who will benefit from that instability. This, of course, coupled with very, very stable rent-seeking, or whatever you want to call them, right? Patterns of patronage, clientelism, corruption, which have empowered very important, there's a question I saw in the chat, but I don't know when you want to call them oligarchs, but very important interests, which control a lot of the politics as well. This is paralleled with what I consider at least major socioeconomic problems for the majority of the population, or for at least a substantial part of the population, particularly in the periphery, right, outside the capital. Couple this with the Russian issue, right, the fact that the Bulgarians are split, and I don't know actually numbers, so I don't want to misspeak how split they are, but that there is a very stable support for the Russian position on various issues, right? Which is paralleled with, which is supported by actual nationalism, ironically, right? And we've talked about this before. And then comes the major political apathy that we have seen, right? Voter turnout of up to 40% was the maximum that we've had in the last 15 years, and repeated elections. And of course, the fragmentation of the political landscape that has been mentioned, and in the last year, supported not only by the nationalist fragmentation, but also on the ethnic, on the Turkish vote. Right? So we have this multiplication of actors, so it becomes very, very difficult for these political, the structural political preferences to ever materialize. So what this allows, of course, is for the strong man to come and benefit from it. And I think Radev has been in the making ever since he first ran for president. I remember very clearly when he was the strongest, like people liked him the best. And somebody who's actually in that audience told me, I would never vote for a general. There is no way a general should be president, which made me vote personally blanco at that election. And I'm very happy I did. So he's been coming, right? The horse has been groomed and he's coming to save it. And I think what is also contributing to this, which makes me very personally very sad every time I turn on the news, is also that we have had a major collapse of the social fabric of Bulgarian society. Right? The level of crime, the level of, however you want to see it, the destabilization of what builds, what keeps a society together has also been challenged. And that, of course, is the breeding ground, as most of you know, for such political projects as they like to call themselves, as Radev. I think it was mentioned in the chat. He has a very particular communication style. Anybody who's seen his statements, and he's very composed, very much on top of things. Doesn't say much, but says it with such slowly, right? So to allow for the pregnant silences to speak for themselves, as if the support is all to him. And I think that will, I'm afraid it will deliver. What of course it will do to the more nationalist corners and the others, I don't know. So maybe that would be a positive that would happen. But I'm curious. Actually, I think what is most important right now is to open up for questions and hear what people have to say, unless, of course, my colleagues want to respond to all of this. But again, I think given what we have seen in the last, how many years, Radev is in some ways the very, the perfect savior. It's time for Borisov to go, time for somebody else. That's where I'll leave it.
A last question for our guest. What is your prognostic, your expectation for this election? What do you think? What will be the result? I know it's a very difficult game, but what is your feeling, Petia?
It is a risky exercise.
Yeah, sure.
We are in a context of uncertainty. But what comes to Radev, I think that he has the potential to become the first political force, because but even that for now we know Radev, we don't know his party. Why? Because we have huge parts of voters that are not voting anymore, that may be attracted by Radev. Secondly, we've seen already the sympathies of some small nationalist parties to Radev. And also because some agencies, some experts in Bulgaria did forecast between 80 to 100 seats. It is clear that absolute majority is unrealistic, but who knows? And just to react to Maria, what she said, that one positive effect of Radev would be the, let's say, the marginalization of this nationalist, but I would approach the question from another perspective. We have around 25 to 30% of people really leaning to national conservative, national populism, pro-Russian, but until now, they vote for different parties, and this space is really fragmented. And for me, there is one risk that for the first time, we risk to have all these voters, in fact, consolidated, yes, around one, which will represent a huge force, but we don't know if he is going to this direction or centrist, pro-European, etc. We don't know.
Ivaylo.
Yeah, the same way, like already Maria said about the lack of structural preferences. So actually, around 500,000 is the protest vote. And in every election, it's either going to some of these protest parties or it's not voting at all. So now probably Radev will activate majority of this protest vote, which means at least 20% by only this protest voting. And then depending of the program and the people who are in the Radev list, it's either taken from the Socialist Party or from the nationalist parties or from other centrist parties. I guess that, but this is just my feeling, that Radev will try to be a kind of a new center in the party system. Because the previous we continued the Czech Democratic Bulgaria, they were more or less only trying to be in the center, but remain on the liberal reformist pro-European bloc, which is limited around 15-20%. Now he will try to be the new centrist party that is taken from everyone. That's why he tried to build a rhetoric figure of everyone to identify, like neither left, neither right. We support, we will fight against inequality, but we also support the business. So, in a party system without preferences, yes, typical, like Ildiko said, populist party. So the question, as I said, is who will be in the coalition with Radev? If Radev is first, and here the question is either GERB, Borisov party, or the liberal coalitions. And I don't know. For now, it seems that both Borisov and the liberals are trying to not close this possibility. They are not, I think, talking in a way to lack the possibility of building a compromise with Radev. So probably they have this strategy in the election route also, to be in a coalition with Radev.
Thank you, Maya.
I'll just say I expect Radev to be the plurality winner with somewhere around 30% and Gerd to follow second as usual, and then Pevsky. But let's see what happens. Let's open up for questions. We've spoken enough.
And Ildiko.
Well, he will most likely come first of the elections, but then he'll need to form a coalition. And here the question actually is not if he's gonna win the elections, but how stable the government will be and this project will be. Then I'm not optimistic for him.
Okay, thank you very much. Now it's time for the audience. You have your yellow hand, please. Then we can Thank you very much. And please present yourself, then we can understand your questions also. Gianmarco.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your intervention. Thanks, Jean-Michel, for having organized this panel. I'm Gianmarco Bucci. I am a PhD student at Scuola Normale Superiore, currently in Waele at Jean-Michel University for a visiting. Just wanted to go very fast back to the discussion on the coalition potential of Radev that Ivaylo was talking about, also Ildiko. Seems to me that the most obvious in terms of ideology, coalition is excluded. It is a Slovak scenario in which the conservatives are together, the left and the radical right, under the umbrella of Radev. I know that the radical right is not very supportive of Radev at the moment, but what is impeding this scenario, which at least ideologically would be the most obvious one, a conservative, pro-Russian, economically leftist front? Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. We will take different questions. Antonio?
Yes, hi. Hello. I am Antonio, and I'm a former student of the USB. And I wanted to know which were the revendication of the last wave protest that lead to the resignation of the government. Besides the economic grievances, were there other clear goals?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aria, nice to see you. Microphone.
Yes, thank you so much. I have a question more on the global.
Can you present yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Maria Mateva Kazakova, and I completed my PhD on the populism in Bulgaria in Paris 2 Assas, and I'm very interested still in the topic. My question is more on the global overview and the different periods that we can see in the post-communist period of Bulgaria. Because it looks to me that after the first 10 years of partisan model, then we had this proper populist period of at least 20 years. But since 2021, it looks to me that something else is happening. We have still this populist wave, but also anti-populist wave. We can see the people on the streets. We can see the governments resignating. So it's interesting to hear a bit more on these global periods. Would you identify something structurally new? Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And to finish this first questions, Donika.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Danica, and I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Portsmouth in the United Kingdom. I'm currently working on the Common Foreign and Security Policy and the foreign policy of Bulgaria. And during my research, indeed, I'm having some trouble connecting the internal instabilities in Bulgaria to foreign policy. And I very much appreciate the discussion and the roundtable we're having today. So my first question, well, actually two short questions to the speakers are, how do you think that the Bulgarians' abroad votes and the domestic votes are going to align? Are they going to be very different for the next elections? Because in the recent years, I have witnessed a huge disinterest of Bulgarians abroad to go and vote. And my second question will be, is Radev the only way for us to see Borisov and Peevski out of power? And even if they're out of power, don't you think that they have a lot of people in key positions in important institutions that are still going to help them out and keep running the business with European projects or even subsidies, etc.? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I give the floor to our guest. I propose that Maria can begin, and after Ildiko, after Ivaylo, after Petia, you answer what is more relevant for you, more interesting for you. Maya, there's the floor.
Good questions. I think that the connection between domestic politics and foreign policy is, I think, here is important. You also had a question about the role of the war in the Russian-Ukrainian war for Bulgarian politics. I think what we've seen here is clearly, well, Radev represents the clearly not, however you want to call it. I call him centrist. I think really he's center-left, but he's really he's not the anti-Russian front in Bulgaria. If anything, he's the pro-Russian, as talking in his statement on Crimea. He's all over the internet, but also that he always is that he always follows the yes, Ukraine, but we have to not forget how this all started and the role of the EU. So I think this has played, and this of course this has played a very important role in his rise. Right, it came at the proper time. And of course it has been supported by that split in Bulgarian society, which I think is very real, right? For historical, whatever you want to call it, cultural, political reasons, we have a big segment of Bulgarian society that's about 30%, I guess, is what Petia said, which supports a more pro-Russian policy, and which now has the potential to be united, right? Under Radev. And I think that is probably the biggest problem. On the Bulgarians abroad, yeah, that's a good question. Today in Parliament, they are discussing also limiting the ability of Bulgarians abroad to vote. Yes, there are relatively few votes, except for the many votes that go the way of the Turkish party. And that has also been a little split in the last elections because of the split in the parties. So that remains a sensitive issue. But generally, the biggest winner always is the Turkish party because of the simple number of voters. I think in 2021, Trifonov also won quite some abroad. But ever since, I think the vote has not really has remained somewhat split among them. And I guess I'll leave the other questions for other people.
Okay, Ildiko.
Okay, yeah, all great questions, but I'll focus on Maria's question on populism, because actually populism it's the let's say the defining characteristics of the Bulgarian political scene. So it's not between populism and something else, but it's in between different types of populism. And there's either a pro-European, anti-corruption, anti-status quo, but still in a way liberal pro-European political projects, right? Kind of we continue to change democratic Bulgaria, against other type of nativist, nationalist, anti-European, pro-Russian type of populist parties of movements. So we don't have kind of a left, right, or mainstream populism. We have only different type of populist movements and political actors. So I don't know if what we've seen as a protest wave is per se a kind of a reaction against this situation of dominant populism on the political scene. I don't think so. It's just another mobilization wave that will lead to another type of populist populist movement. But this is what it is. If Radev, I'm going to the last question. If Radev is the only way to get out Borisov and Peevski, I don't know, but hopefully not.
Thank you, Ivaylo.
There are many questions. Maybe trying to unite somehow them. Maybe one question that we all have for the future of the election is whether there will be some change in the foreign policy of Bulgaria, depending on the structure of the next government, which unite the question of the role of the war of Russia against Ukraine and the domestic and foreign policy issues in the country. Despite the different formulation of foreign policies issues, I hope that there will not be dramatic shift, because there are now parties in the nationalist sphere that are anti-Euro adoption, high Eurosceptic. So there is some feeling that Bulgaria, it's increasing the Euroscepticism, which according to Eurobarometer, it's actually in this direction. So we have increasing of Euroscepticism. I don't know what is the reason. We can speculate about many different factors. For example, that the face of European values in Bulgaria became also Borisov and Peevski, who were also associated with the state capture. So this is one of the reasons for the Euroscepticism. But this can lead also, like this wave of Euroscepticism, there is a danger that we can have some kind of majority of Eurosceptic majority. So whether Radev with other parties, but kind of Orban or Babiš, or this Eurosceptic bloc in Visegrad countries. There is some speculation that maybe something will happen in Bulgaria, and also in the previous years, people who were part of the circle around Radev speak about a new constitution and to become a president republic. So this is another question that there is speculation about that. I don't think that majority people will want to change the system from parliamentary to president. But with this chaotic party system, with 8 elections in a row, with deep political crisis, there is for sure increasing of authoritarian trends. So people that want hard hand, so the savior to come and to stop everything, to don't have chaotic political environment. And despite every political crisis that we can identify, protest elections, economically Bulgaria is very good. Economically, Bulgaria is very good. In the last 10, 15 years, Bulgaria is a very good economic development. It's uneven economic development. Like we still have very high inequality, but we don't have a left party to address this in a good way. But still, we have a big inequality, big divide between ethnic groups. And this somehow maybe is leading also the protest vote, the authoritarian trends, the geopolitical tension is leading sure that there will be like a big winner, and this will be Radev, but not the full majority. But the next question will be about the foreign policies of Bulgaria and the internal dynamics. More or less will be the same, I guess. We don't have really a political debate, a serious political debate. Just as a context, we don't have one of the main leaders of the parties like Borisov or Peevski. They never been in a political debate with other party leaders before elections. The last time that Borisov was in a political debate was, I think, at the time with Stanishev, so the first elections of GERB. So after that, and now for the first time, Borisov is making an interviews in a podcast, which is a sign that maybe something is changing. Maybe he's losing the ground, he's losing the support, and he now starts speaking about how much he did in the past and so forth and so on. So something is shifting in Bulgaria. There are so many things that we don't know, but we can speculate about the future, and it will be insecure and unstable party system. What we miss and what Bulgaria still is missing, and maybe the next election round will not stop this, is that already with what we define as this unstable party system, not structural preferences. So political parties are either anti-corruption or associated with corruption. So if you spend much time in government, you are associated with corruption. If you're in a position, you are anti-corruption. And there is no political debate. You have new party, Radev, a populist, protest preferences for sure going there. And we have the same cycle in every decade.
Thank you, Petia.
I will be answering some questions in the chat about the way of running election of Radev. Technically, to register a new party, we have to have at least 3 to 4 months. So Radev doesn't have this time. Enough, and as Maria Spirova answered, he will do the same like the former king or even Asem Vasiliev and Kirill Petkov in 2021. They launched the platform in September. They won the elections in November, but they ran with the already registered parties. Yes, it is an interesting question. I will try to guess. I think one possible party is the party called Bulgaria Ascent. One of the parties he supported in 2022, close to his vision. This party called the war against Ukraine as a special operation, not a war, etc., etc. Maybe with this party, but we don't know. Then Michel asked a question about Russia and Ukraine. And I would like just to add to all already said that in the personality of Radev and his project, he has here his main strength. Why? First of all, he says, I'm a trained general. I've been trained in US. I've been trained in the highest high quality military schools in the world. So I know when I'm talking, it is because I have this expertise. And the second thing, I am really in the continuity. Since the beginning, I said we need diplomacy, we need peace, we need diplomacy, we need peace. And now apparently the international context is really favorable or could be favorable for this kind of discourses. And also, but we don't know if there is a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Who knows if there is the American influence in the conflict. Radev finds his place very well. He really fits in within the new context. But as Ivaylo said and Maria, I think that the model for inspiring Radev is Orban. And when he gave his interview on national TV, he talked about Orban. I didn't hear anything about Ursula von der Leyen, about the European Commission, about NATO. He defended Orban because Orban supported Bulgaria and Romania to enter the Schengen space. So I think that in this empty vase, maybe some patriotic and Eurosceptic trends will prevail over the pro-Europeanism and strong support for the classical multilateralism. Thank you.
Thank you. Second and final round of questions. Johannes, can you present yourself?
Hello. Yeah, Johannes Heideke. I was economic advisor in North Macedonia. I have an economic question. One of the big changes, Bulgaria introduced the euro. It was very much under discussion. Does this still play a role, or is it now something that is done, or with the experience is even stabilizing or destabilizing the situation?
Thank you, Dragana.
Hey everyone, thank you for a really informative and great discussion so far. So I am a political scientist based in the US working for American Political Science Review. I have a question about sort of ethnic angle for the next election? And what would you say might change, if anything, when it comes to like support of the Turkish minority? Is that like permanently captured by some version of the EPC, or there is like a possibility for any shift? Thank you.
Thank you. Donika again.
Yes, hi, it's me again. Well, I'm going to join the first question, and it was actually about the Euro adoption, because there have been many narratives, especially coming from like external observers, that the protests, like the massive protests, were mostly against the corruption and against the budget. However, from my impressions and from the information I also got, there were people who were against the Euro adoption who also joined this massive protests. So my question is mostly, how do you think that the parties in power, or the parties who just have like quit the like Rosen Željazko's party and GERB, have actually profited from their influence in the narrative, and how they profited from the media, from the medias who actually serve their interests in this pro-European rally and pro-Euro adoption? And do you think that somehow there was a manipulation in the information coming outside, I mean, like from Bulgaria to the outside world, about the protestants and what they're actually protesting for? Thank you.
Okay, and to finish the discussion, Gaspar.
Hi everyone. So my name is Gaspar. I'm in my year 2 of my bachelor at University at ULB. I'm a former student of Professor Waele, and I'm currently in following a class about international relations, and I'm interested in the relation of between global studies and the evolution of democracy. And I had a first question, which was about like the rise of populism. How would you link this rise of populism with Roman Radev in Bulgaria to a kind of progressive shift to autocracy, a step-by-step autocratization? So how much is populism responsible for autocratization in Bulgaria and the region in general? And secondly, given the context, so with Russia and the rising of populism in Romania and Republika Srpska, as we've seen in our last conference, and the history in the region, like the brutal breakup of Yugoslavia and its tight relations with Bulgaria, how much now are international relations responsible for the democratic backslide in the region? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
I'm very proud for my students. Okay, I don't know.
I can start. Yeah.
Yes, Rom.
Yeah, Gaspar, very good question. Good to have students here as well. I think you're ready to come and do your master's at Leiden. That is exactly the question I asked.
We will discuss.
My master's students. Yes, of course, a very deep connection between populism domestically, backsliding domestically, and the end of the international liberal order as we know it. The globalization and its discontents, and the rise of the void that we know exists between politicians and the elite. I mean, we talk about the Bulgarian case as a peculiar example of this, but we have a lot of these trends all over Europe, right, and all over the world for that matter. So, I mean, in that regard, Bulgaria is not that unique. It's just extreme in the number of elections. But you have very similar trends in other countries. So absolutely, I think we have a lot of it. That having been said, and it also came in on the link with Radev and Orban, right? Because people have asked us in various events, why is Bulgaria, even if it has a lot of the precursors of what we have seen in Orban's Hungary, why is it not Hungary? My answer, you know, because I was a little like, yeah, well, what I would say, I'm an institutionalist, right? I always said, well, because we cannot, institutionally, we cannot produce a supermajority, a prime minister who controls supermajority, because of the all kinds of systems that we have, right? Institutional, electoral system, governmental system. But the other really important difference is that Orban has build a party, right? Fidesz is a machine of patronage, organization, reaching out, important discourse, which Radev still does not have and will probably never have. So we have to still see there. So I'm a little doubtful about the whole Orban thing. And I think the European Union here is going to be crucial, right? They were crucial in the, when was it, 2023 for this famous Zgłopka cabinet, right? When the Russian threat, the pro-Russian threat was seen as so big that they pushed. I think here they have to see what they have to do. One last thing, and then I'll let other people speak on the ethnicity, because I kind of take this as one of my topics. Well, we have the split right now, right, between the two DPS. I saw in the latest available opinion surveys that Dogan's DPS is not likely to make it into parliament. Of course, things can change. So actually, we have the consolidation of the Turkish vote in the hands of Peevski. And I don't think, at least I don't see a reason for anything to go in any other direction. We've seen the political elite move over to his side. Organizationally, he has actually multi-ethnicized the party, right? There are many more Bulgarians in there. So from all kind of democratic theoretical purposes, he's doing amazing. He's not, right? I mean, just this was irony. So. Okay, I'll leave it in this. And
okay, thank you, Petia.
Thank you so much.
I will briefly answer the question of Danica and another question. So about the euro and the eurozone, first of all, we forgot to mention that for the first time in our history, we have a female president. Because we have a very misogynistic society, very machist, and there is really a real decline over these 5 years, last 5 years. Even the new pro-European parties are very working women at the top. Secondly, the adoption of euro is irreversible. It is clear that it is unreasonable to think that there will be a reversal. However, I think that parties such as Возрождение, Revival, for instance, or maybe to a certain extent Sword Match, will build their campaign against the euro, on the inflation, the social difficulties, the rising of prices, etc., etc. And for the protest, it was very interesting to ask your question, because, of course, to have more than 150,000 people only in Sofia, you cannot count only on Gen Z or only on the most liberal. There were different people from different ages. And what is more, officially, the far-right party Возрождение officially said, we support the protest, we will join the protest. Other radical parties joined too. But since the most vocal and most visible were, they started the protest, we continue the change. They, very the narrative imposed and the frame in public discourses, it is our protest, we are all in the same wave, which is a mistake to think that all these people were on the same. The common thing was we don't want Peevski, we don't want Borisov, we don't want corruption enough.
Ildiko?
I don't have it if there are any questions left, but just a reaction to Petia. I'm not actually the most convinced feminist, but the fact that we have our first female president under these circumstances, it's rather sad. It's a pity. Honestly, I hope that we'll have a real first elected female president one day, and this will be the first female president.
Yes, but yet one way or another, she is our president. Okay.
Ivaylo, to finish.
Continuing what Petia discussed about the only question, like strategically, the main organizers decided to not have these divide lines. And I know, for example, that in Plovdiv, for example, the organizers that were not related to the political parties, they were organized by civil groups, and they said that they decided, because they know that many different people are joining the protest, from liberal, nationalist, anti-Euro, pro-Euro, to not talk about topics that can divide the people. So that was a strategic decision. So this is part of the strategy of protest mobilizations. And I think in Sofia, they also try to do that, because there were some attempts to divide on many topics, because this is the usual, like you have many different sector campaigns during the year, and then in a large protest wave, the one demand that unite all of them is resignation of government, and this in Bulgaria repeated many times. This is part of our protest culture, for good or bad. And but yes, usually, just to contextualize this, usually in Bulgaria we have these two waves, two trajectories from the 2000s, let's say. The only two sectors that can mobilize a large demonstrations are the liberal movement, mainly in the big cities, and the nationalist movement in more small cities. And in a large demonstrations, they are together when there is anti-governmental, anti-corruption frame. We don't have other sectors that can mobilize so much people. This is to some extent the post-CDC era, because CDC in the 90s somehow united the populists and the liberals. But after the anti-communist divide, after the 90s, they separated, and they are two different trajectories, the liberal and the nationalists, and another stories. But these are the two actors that can mobilize, and this is the case in Bulgaria. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much for the Bulgarian team. I'm sure that we can organize a next webinar for the 9, 10, 11 election, also to analyze the result, and after to understand why 11, 20, etc., etc. Next webinar, it will be February 10. About radical right in Czech Republic. It's a very, very interesting subject, because it's non-common. It's not a repetition as in Bulgaria. It's something very incredible, with very interesting and strange political party. Really, Bulgaria cannot win with some motorist and all the incredible Czech political parties. And you will continue to receive the announce of our next webinar. And I repeat, if you want to organize something about one topics, because you are interested to organize something about women in politics, mobilization in students, I don't know, please send me a message, and we can collaborate to organize all this webinar. This webinar is recorded, then it will also have in our YouTube channel. I will send you the link. I think for the students and for everybody, for some journalists also, it can be very useful to have all our webinar or YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Good evening, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.